in regards to relationships, and I've heard you talk about on the tape, the one. Tentacles of thought of my past are definitely connected to that dominant thought currently. Some guidance.
Well, we'll ask the group who's listening in. Relative to this subject of her desire, does it feel to you that she's a vibrational match to her desire, or is her dominant thought not quite yet there? It gets pretty easy when someone says the relationship that I want hasn't happened yet. Anyone who knows about the laws of the universe knows that you must not be a vibrational match to it, but you can still feel it. But in this situation, this is something that you can do something about. You do have the ability to reach for a better feeling thought in this case. In other words, you can create a virtual reality and make what you are wanting your dominant thought in this case. Again, it may be a subject that is big enough that it will take some effort, but we think this is a case where you can use your desire to get into a better feeling place to reach for the thought that feels better. Are you a vibrational match to your desire? Or is the dominant thought relative to the subject of a mate a match to your desire, or more a match to what has been happening? And you say, well, it's a match to what has been happening.
Right.
So now, just use this new terminology. We think that it will jump you into a new place. Begin saying, when you find yourself feeling discouraged or lonely, just say to yourself, I can feel that my dominant thought, the thought that I'm practicing right now, right in this red hot minute, is not a match to my desire. Now let's see. And somebody should do something about that. Let's see. Maybe I can do something about it. We watch you. You are solution-oriented. You have never seen anyone come up with more ideas. Esther completely tore the entire inside and outside of the motorhome apart within about 5 minutes looking for something to stick in that hole. You never saw anybody with so many ideas. She had the caps off of everything, the plugs out of everything. She had a basket of possibilities that she brought to Jerry. The solutions begin coming right away. We see how eager you are for solutions, and what we're suggesting is, with the same sort of fervor to make it work, that you begin reaching for a thought that feels good, and you reach for it so often that you make it the dominant thought. We want to sort of dissolve all of that and help you to realize that it's not possible for you to get from a place that you don't want to be to a place that you do want to be. Because if you are so aware that you're in a place that you don't want to be, there's a dominant vibration about where you don't want to be. And so you have to get to the place where you're not considering where you are or even the transfer to the new place. You just have to practice being in the new place until it feels more familiar than being in the old place, until the new place is the dominant vibration. And the good news is, along the way, it's total entertainment. In other words, it can be so much fun. And in the process of it, you can also uncover different aspects where you might have particular little hang-ups. In other words, that through trial and error and through future virtual realities, you can work the bugs out of those. Yes?
One of the hang-ups that I find is a feeling of disconnection. So even if I'm in that lovely setting you're talking about, there's a way I feel like I'm watching it and I'm not there.
Well, we understand that, but the more you practice it, the more you will feel like you are there. You get better and better and better at getting inside of your own visions. Take yourself in there and have conversations, talk, offer vocabulary. In other words, say things, hear your own words, listen for their words. You can make it more and more and more real all the time. Many of you resist the idea of it because it feels like fantasy, it feels like fiction. Most of all, it feels like untruth. And you've trained yourself to face reality. You've trained yourself to tell the truth. You've trained yourself to tell it like it is. So in the beginning, these fantasies feel a little inappropriate because it's like you're fooling yourself. Sometimes people will say, well, isn't this just denial? And we say, we hope so. We hope that you are denying the absence that you do not want, and we hope that you are embracing the presence of what you do want. But somehow the idea of denial has become a dirty word to you, like it is virtuous to face the reality of the horror of your own life. And we would be ignoring anything that did not please us. We would get our eyes on what feels good so fast. In other words, we would not spend a moment trying to justify why we're standing in a place that we don't want to be. We would just be taking the ride of the rocket that was born up out of it. And all of you, we want you to relax into the well-being that you so much deserve. We want you to begin practicing those feelings of, this should come to me. It ought to be coming to me. There's no logical reason that it isn't coming to me. Somebody should do something about this. Oh yeah, that's me. Somebody should do something about this. Oh yeah, it's up to me. It's up to me and my virtual reality. And I'm going to do something about it. And next time you find yourself in any fitful mood that doesn't feel good about any subject, whether it's a relationship or money or anything, as you catch yourself in the middle of it and then say, here I am, not matching my own desire. I guess I should do something about that. And then reach to do it. It just gets easier and easier and easier.
Your tapes help reach to do it as a backup plan.
Some have said, Abraham, it would be really nice if you would just sit with me and make a tape with me and then I will just listen to the tape. But do you know that your words in your virtual reality are hundreds of times more effective than our words in your virtual reality? You can pick the words and they get to continue to evolve. You can find exactly the expression because you have all of that experience. You know what you want relative to all of those things. The advantage we have is that we trust that the universe has the ability to yield to you what you want. You say, well, I know what I want, I just don't think I can get it. We say, you know better what you want, and we know you can get it. And so, just play with it. Be playful about it. Don't do the virtual reality to make something happen. Do the virtual reality to change the dominant thought. We think that this is a step in between. I'm going to change my dominant thought. So, what is my dominant thought? Let's play with some of these for a little bit. We're just going to throw some things out to you. My dominant thought, you're asking yourself, my dominant thought relative to dollars. Is my dominant thought more lack-based, not enough dollars? Or is my dominant thought, I got plenty of dollars? Which is it? And more importantly, which do you want it to be? So if there's a mismatch, you've got some work to do. What is my dominant thought relative to my body? Do I feel vital and alive and fit, or do I feel weak and vulnerable and fading? How do I feel in my body? What's my dominant thought? I certainly know what my desire is, but what's my dominant thought? These are easy questions for you to answer. We think that there isn't a person in this room that couldn't give us a absolute answer relative to those two subjects first thing. We don't think there's one of you that would go, well. We think you know. What's my dominant thought relative to my body? Do I feel fat or fit? You know. What's my desire relative to my body? Fat or fit? Does my dominant thought fit? Am I fat? We don't think you're desiring fat, but we think fat is fitting in places where you don't want it to fit. You know these things. You can tell by the way you feel. What's my dominant thought? So this is going to be a fun thing for you. You're going to make a lot of headway in a short period of time, all of you, as you move forward and you find yourself in this place where you're wanting something that isn't yet, and you're in that place, why isn't it coming? Why isn't it coming? And you stop and you say, oh yeah, my dominant thought must not match my desire. Now, somebody should do something about that. We would begin right then. And before you know it, you will be matching. You'll begin feeling the teeter-totter tip, and everything around you will support it as you begin seeing universal forces which are already in place, easily sliding into your experience because of the newfound allowance in this process. Yes.
Is dominant thought the declarative statement that you make to yourself?
It might be, or it might just be a feeling. It might be something that you have not allowed yourself to speak about. Esther watched Jerry yesterday. Once everything got moving, he did not bring up the leaving of the oil cap off. He didn't bring it up. He did not speak a word about it. And Esther almost didn't. And for a little while, Esther wondered why he wasn't talking more about it. And he was sort of traumatized. He couldn't believe he'd caused them so much trouble. But once they gained their balance, it is not something that he brought up again. In other words, and we would not talk about anything that made you feel uncomfortable while you were living it. In other words, we are only causing him a public reliving of it because there is so much value in it. There is so much for you to recognize in all of this. In other words, you are always molding yourselves into a better feeling place, and you will never get it done. It will never be completely finished. It will never be absolutely right. You will always have some dominant thoughts that are not a vibrational match to the newfound desire. But that is always what your work is, and it's time for you to just begin relaxing about it and not make it a personal issue of your own valor or your own value or your own integrity. It's not about any of that. It's just, how many times have I thought this thought? In other words, if you've practiced this one, that's where it's going, and that's what you're letting in. And before you know it, it tips this way. And the reason that we're demonstrating it in this powerful tipping thing is because right now, you know, even though you think thoughts of well-being and you think thoughts of not well-being, if we were to bring up 10 subjects, in every case, you know what your dominant thought is. Even if it's close, you still know what your dominant thought is. And we're wanting you to realize is the universe is responding as per your dominant thought. So if your lover is missing, your dominant thought is not upon being with your lover.
Good.
If you weigh 20 pounds more than you want to weigh, it is because your dominant thought is about where you are. It's easier to think about what is. We know it is. What is all around you. You can look at it. You can see it in the mirror. You can see it in the eyes of others as they look at you. In other words, we're not saying it's the easiest thing in the world to feel slender when you aren't. But you've got to make the shift vibrationally before anything in terms of physical manifestation can shift too. And everything is that way. There's not one exception to it.
So frustration is definitely an emotion to look at the dominant thought and say, right now, this is one that I need a new
That's
dominant
what we would
thought.
do. If you feel emotion enough that you recognize it, it's telling you there's a desire here on the table. And if the emotion is positive, it means my dominant thought is in keeping with my desire. But if the emotion is negative, it means my dominant thought relative to the subject is in a place of resistance or not letting it in. Nice, isn't it? Nice to recognize
really
that.
good.
It makes it easier. And then just be playful about it. In other words, you have all kinds of thoughts relative to all kinds of things. And bless your hearts, you've picked them up from so many places. Sometimes it was because your mother felt that way so strongly and was around you so pervasively that you just sort of picked it up by osmosis. Some of it you got from your best friend when you were 4. Some of it you get from your television. Some of it you got from someone that you only met briefly that made a really strong impression on you. You've been picking it up all over the place. Your dominant thoughts or beliefs, opinions, it doesn't matter what word we use, it's just a vibration that you keep vibrating. And the reason you keep vibrating is because it's the most natural vibration. It's because it is the most practiced, you see. And so you can make up for a lot in a short period of time by deliberately reaching for a thought that feels better and determining consciously that you're going to make it your dominant thought. Here's some exercises for you. Pick someone who irritates you, whose name is synonymous with irritation. Oh, you're so fast and good. We will not reveal your secrets. Now, acknowledge where your dominant thought is relative to this. Now, they may deserve it. They may have taught you to feel that way over a long period of time. But the fact of the matter is, your dominant thought relative to this person is not serving you. Because every time you think about that person and every time that dominant thought surfaces, you are in a place of resisting the well-being that would be there otherwise. Now, some of you would say, that person needs to do something. That person should change. That person should work harder on being easier on my vibration. And we say, the person that needs to do something is not that person. The person that needs to do something is you. If this is a person who comes up in your mind often, and if when it comes up, the dominant thought is one that does not feel good, then you need to do something about that. Now, if it's someone on television, every time you see their ugly face, you can just turn them off. Or every time you hear their annoying words, you can just mute them. But there is a much better way of going about it. In other words, if it's something that's continuing to come into your experience, you need to find some other thoughts. And some of you are not willing. In other words, some of those people on television or some of those people in your life do not deserve your good thoughts. They are bad, they are evil, they are wrong, they are inappropriate. They do not deserve your good thoughts, and you stubbornly are not going to give them any. And what we're saying to you is they may not deserve your good thoughts, but you do. You deserve your good thoughts about them. This is what the art of allowing is. It's allowing my own well-being.